Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Voice of Hong Kong. We are speaking to the world. Voice of Hong Kong is a show about Hong Kong's relevance to the world, and we aim at finding a way of getting Hong Kong's voice to an English-speaking audience by talking to Hong Kong people through the perspective of foreigners. Today is April 13th. It's around 11:30 in the morning here in Hong Kong, and we're with Joe Moe. Hi, Joe Moe. How are you? Why don't you give us a short bio, introduce.
Sure. My name is Joe Moe. I'm a writer. I live in Hollywood, California. Like many people who end up in show business, from the time I was a kid, I dreamt of being part of this big business. I come from a show business family. My grandparents were in vaudeville, taking Hawaiian music all over Southeast Asia and Europe. My father was a knife dancer. My mother's a shrink. And I followed in both of their footsteps. I'm an artist and a mental case. So my special interest is in horror movies because I find them so full of craft and art, creativity. I don't particularly like them just because they're spooky, but when you're starting out, you try to work every department. So that's a medium where you get to learn arts, crafts, directing, acting, holding a boom mic, learn all the departments. So that led me here, where I met you.
Yay, that was fun. So thanks for your introduction. That was wonderful. I'm sorry I couldn't do it myself, but I'll just let you speak for you. So anyway, normally our show is about a Hong Kong person interviewing a foreigner or a foreigner interviewing a Hong Kong person. So today I will be the Hong Kong person and you'll be the foreigner. But mostly I'm going to be interviewing you. What I really want to know is the how, who, what, where, when, why, and all of these things about Joe Moe. But we don't really have all of that time. So we're going to do a short segment today. We're going to, I think it's a Lito tease. Isn't that a Lito tease? But we're going to do segments today, one short segment, and then we're going to come back for some longer shows. So today we're going to talk mostly about how we met, actually, and maybe not how we met, but where we met, and some of the people that we've met along the way, some of our friends. One of them happens to be the lead singer of Skinny Puppy. So going kind of not chronologically, but backwards in time, let's start with him.
We can talk about our friendship, which would involve Oghr pretty early on. So
Right. So you I think what happened was Oghr was a friend of, because he's so cagey around new people, and of course, new people are his group. He wants to be careful about who he meets. So I think the first time I met or saw Oghr was on stage at what's the name of the theater right there? Is it Gower and across the street from Pantages? The little No, the little box.
The Henry Ford. Is that the Henry Ford Theater?
Is that the Henry Ford? The little tiny one? I think that's the first time I met him. Yep. Right. Hollywood Boulevard. That's right. I love how you call it the Pantages. But
Pantages. The Pantages.
I'm you. But I think that's where we met. And so after the show, of course, I saw him on stage. And then after the show, of course, we went to the after party, which was on the roof. And he was as drunk as I've ever seen anybody. Which is typical of anyone in his position at that time.
Oghr has a style of he's not really that. He like us, and Oghr's not so much standoffish. Oghr's a very shy person,
right?
Like some of our heroes. We're going to talk about Forrest J Ackerman, who you got to know as well, who's a huge icon in our business and in our world. He was very painfully shy too, but he found ways of communicating to break through that. And Oghr, who's and I'm a shy person. I mean, I just, through having to speak and having to perform and do all of this, I've learned to fake it till I make it feel comfortable. Oghr, I think, is the same way. He expresses himself on stage. Forrest J Ackerman is a very shy person. He expresses himself through writing. I express myself through blah, 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 through
Right. I get nervous and talk.
Storytelling. So bring us back to my interest in horror movies, Oghr also had an interest in those things. So when we met many, many years ago, we became really, really good friends. As different as we were in style, our hearts were kind of the
Well,
same.
I
Interested in
find
all
that super interesting because right around the time that I met Ogre, or I think it was right at the beginning, he
that.
released Ogre and
Hmm.
his band Ogre, and they had an album called Welt, and they had a song on there, and I can't remember the name of the song. A song that he had a music video for. And so he asked you as his friend to come over and check out his brand new music video that him and Thomas Coots had put together. And like, he
Oh
wanted
yeah,
you
with
to
all those.
criticize stuff. I don't know if you remember that, but
I do remember
that
that.
was in Woodland
Thomas,
Hills.
Thomas is an incredible. I mean, all these people we're mentioning are really amazing artists. Thomas is a real artisan. He does all of the kind of automata, clockwork figures. He tools all of the gears and everything, just like in the olden days where they'd make basically a
I just
watchwork.
remember that Ogre was, I don't want to take away from Thomas Coots. He's an amazing artist, but right now I just want to talk about Ogre because he was like so proud of his contribution to the horror, science fiction, animation,
Well, it's what started.
automata, Ray Harryhausen. I mean, he was like in his head telling us about it. He was like, "This is my tribute to Ray Harryhausen. This is my like." Help Thomas Kuntz get work. This is me like contributing to the horror and science fiction, and I think he was criticizing some pop artists at the time with the video and the lyrics and things. So he was criticizing like pop culture.
Well, he
I
was
mean,
he
he
was
was
giving
like
back.
really, he was really putting his stand on the like and stamp on the like on the international forum there, and I was
Well,
so
it's a
happy to
cycle.
be
It's a cycle. It,
yeah.
it it's not in a vacuum. It's a cycle. Ogre, came from Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine, just as I did, and just as household names like Steven
Right.
Spielberg, Ray Harryhausen, Guillermo del Toro, Gene Simmons, Kirk Hammett, Tim Burton. We can go on and on and on and on. All of those kids read this magazine in the '60s and
Right.
decided, wow, I don't only have to be an audience member, I can participate. And that's why we have all of these Steven Spielbergs and people. Steven Spielberg read that monster magazine and wrapped his sisters up in blue toilet paper, made his first mummy
Right.
movie.
Right.
And Rick Baker, who's won 7 Oscars now for makeup, he was in medical school and he thought to himself, oh, it's not doctors that make monsters, it's the makeup artists. So
Right.
the same thing to me, the same thing happened to me. I'm not a famous person. I'm proud to be a figure in my community, but I mean that's where I come from. And Ogre also read that magazine and dreamt big, and it sort of put him in touch with his creativity in a direction that he wanted to go in. So when Ogre gets to
Well,
do this kind of work, he's very grateful.
well, let's go back again further closer to where we met and how we met. We met kind of like at a bar, and then you told me about where your work was, and I was super intrigued. So we went over to I met you, and we went over to your house and where you lived, which was with Forrest Ackerman. And I think it's funny because the way you tell the story about how you met Forrest Ackerman the first time, of course, you'd been in LA a while, you were kind of shy, you didn't want to go say hi. Finally, you did go say hi, and then you basically didn't leave. And
Yeah, I
and
mean,
and
it's
that
so
was
true. I just
more or less
stayed.
my experience. Is I showed
What
up
happened to
one
you?
day, and I said, hey, you guys need help cleaning this place. You guys need help here. You need help there. I can do this. I can do that. Forrest Ackerman was getting old. I had been working in physical therapy. I was a massage therapist. I knew how to get old people up and ambulatory and do all of these things. So I was like, oh my God, this is like perfect timing. And I just basically never left. And like that's kind of how we met and
So you
around Forrest
live.
Ackerman and
It was
and
an
and
18 house.
I watched him, I watched him meet so many children and so many old people, people that he'd known for 80 years, people that had known him for 70 years
Well,
and just
let's
finally meeting
let's tell
him.
your listeners who Forrest Ackerman is. Forrest J
Yeah.
Ackerman is one of the creators of science fiction. And when I say that, I mean that he, as a little boy in the 30s, would read and fanzines, amazing stories, all the earliest science fiction. He was also create fanzines, which were little magazines made by fans. And he was aggressively advocating for science fiction, which was a new thing. He actually met, he corresponded with H.P. Lovecraft. He heard H.G. Wells speak. So that's the area he's from. And so as he grew up, he took a big interest in it, got together with all the science fiction kids here at Los Angeles Science Fiction Club. And those science fiction kids were people like Robert Heinlein, Isaac Asimov, all the big names. He discovered Ray Bradbury as a poor paperboy on the
Jomo
street.
always likes to talk about who Forrest discovered and who he
Well,
was. The stories that
listen,
fascinate
Forrest
me, the
Ackerman,
stories that fascinate me are that he had a letter in his pocket from the head of Universal Studios that said, let this kid dig anything he wants out of the trash. And that's how he got the Brontosaurus from the original film, from the original
well,
Godzilla. And
what I'm getting to about you is a really interesting thing. Oghr and I and many of us got together out of a love of Forrest and his magazine, Famous Monsters, which started in the 60s. But
True.
Forrest took a shine to you because you just loved Forrest, the person. You didn't know any of this when you came to meet Forrest. You weren't a fan. Everybody else was a fan. So in many cases, just like you see in the movies and on TV sometimes, it's the person that's not enamored. It's the person that's not all, oh, remember when you did this? And, don't you love Star Trek? It's the person that's not doing that the person is so relieved to see. So Oghr and I and Jessica, all of our friends who were working intently with Forrest, trying to preserve his life and make sure that the play stayed kept up. You were really focused on him, and you were sort of like, we'd say, hey, Forrest, where do you want the Dracula cape now? And you'd say, Forrest, do you want a shake from McDonald's? And that was the relationship. It was a very personal relationship. And when Oghr came in, which couldn't be often in the beginning because he was touring and he was working a lot,
right.
You remember he would just sit and listen to Forrest's stories and get his hands dirty with the rest of us, digging through boxes and trying to make his quality of life as best we could. By the time you knew Forrest, he must have been 80. He must have already been 80 plus, so he was an old man by then. But that was a really fun time, and Forrest was
in the
really
Oghr mini mansion. That was so much fun in the Oghr mini mansion.
Yeah. Do you want me to do my Forrest voice describing the big Oghr mansion?
Okay, let's hear it. We only have about 2 minutes left, so let's hear it.
This is my Oghr Mansion Museum of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror. Over 800,000 items, props, books, magazines, artwork, costumes from your favorite Imagine movies. Come on down the steps at 11 o'clock on Saturday. I'll open the door and you can exercise your eyeballs.
That sounds amazing. I remember he had 300,000 books in the basement, and he read every last word. Every time he got a book, he would open it to the last page and read the last word and put it on the shelf.
That's the Forrest joke. My favorite Forrest joke. My favorite Forrest was a punster he was famous for. My favorite was, this is Mary Shelley, the teenage girl who wrote Frankenstein. I don't know if Frankenstein ever wrote back. I miss him. I miss him. We had a great fun life.
I miss him too. I miss him so much. But we got to go because we're trying to keep it into one segment here. So there's one other thing that I want to ask you real quick. But before I do, I just want to remind everybody, please like and subscribe and share with your friends. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so we can do live. Back to my question. There's a little story, a little song that you and Forrest used to sing about his mental health issues. I don't know if it's something you can share with the world, but if you can, maybe you can sing it as we go out.
Well, it wasn't a song. It was how we said goodnight.
30 seconds.
We keep adding stuff to it to make sure he wasn't senile.
Okay, so he started singing.
Okay, we go right toe, son of left toe, Esperanto in Toronto, ta-ta, which means thanks awfully and good luck. Be good to yourself, each other, and Emily Cutler. He came, it was, oh, I've forgotten it, I've gone senile.